Continuing section 1.7, let's go to classroom example 4. Getting ready to divide signed numbers, first let's talk about a reciprocal. The reciprocal of a number is where you swap numerator and denominator. You keep the same sign. Do not change the sign on a reciprocal. You change the sign on the opposite. You change the numerator and denominator on a reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 7 over 15 is 15 over 7. All right, so what's the reciprocal of negative 3? That's really like negative 3 over 1. So the reciprocal of negative 3 over 1 is going to be negative 1 over 3. You keep the sign, but you swap numerator and denominator. So take a moment and try practice 5 on your own, finding the reciprocal of a number. Now the reason reciprocal is important is because it's a two-step process when you divide. Number 1, change division to multiplication. And then step 2, use the reciprocal of the second term. So here I have negative 12 divided by 4. I'm going to bring the negative 12. Change division to multiplication and use the reciprocal of 4, which is 1 over 4. So rather than a division problem, it's now a multiplication problem. And that, if you want to think of that, negative 12 is like 12 over 1. Any whole number or integer is like 1 as a denominator. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 12 3 times. So multiplying across, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And then 1 times 1 is just 1. A negative divided by a positive, your answer should be negative. Okay, here you see a fraction. Well, first of all, I can reduce both numerator and denominator by 10. So this is really like negative 8 over negative 1. Same signs. I'm dividing a negative by a negative. Negative divided by a negative is positive. So go ahead and try practice 6, 1.7, practice 6. All right, here we're going to follow our two-step process. Negative 2/7, we're going to change multiplication to division. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. We're going to change division to multiplication. And then we're going to use the reciprocal of negative 1 over 5. That's going to be negative 5 over 1. It's not a division problem anymore. It's a multiplication problem. So now we just multiply across. A negative times a negative, the answer is going to be positive. Negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. And multiply the denominators across. 7. You get 10 over 7. All right, you're going to practice yourself, practice 7. So whenever you have division, you have to remember that you can never divide by 0. 0 can never be in the denominator. That is undefined. If you try to divide by 0, the result is called undefined. Don't say 0. Say undefined. So what is 5 divided by 0? Anything divided by 0 is undefined. That's your answer. There is no number. All right, so here I'm going to multiply my numerator. 0 times anything is 0 over -3. You know what? You can have 0 in the numerator. That just means no parts. And so my answer is going to be 0. 0 is not positive or negative. 0 is just 0. So if I had 0 over 8, the answer is 0. If I have 0 over 100, the answer is 0. You can have 0 in the numerator, but you cannot have a 0 in the denominator. Okay, you're going to go and try on your own practice number 8. That's making sure you never divide by 0. All right, here let's use our order of operations. Of course, the division bar here is a natural separator. We want to evaluate the numerator first and the denominator second before we do our final operation, numerator divided by denominator. And we do exponents before we do multiplication. So this is going to be, what is -2 to the third? That's -2 multiplied by itself 3 times. -2 times -2 is +4. +4 times -2 is -8. -2 to the third is -8. So this is going to become 5 times -8 plus 52 over, and -4 plus 1, opposite signs you subtract. 4 minus 1 is 3, and keep the sign of the greater. The 4 is bigger than the 1, so my numerator is now -3. So now we're going to go left to right, multiplication before division. 5 times -8, a positive times a negative is negative. Bring down the plus. Bring down the 52, and my denominator is -3. Now I have a -40 and a positive 52. Opposite signs you subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2, 5 minus 4 is 1, and the larger number is positive. So 12 divided by -3, a positive divided by a negative is negative. So this is just practicing that you do your order of operations following the correct order. How about evaluating expressions? So for classroom example 9, everywhere we see an X, we're going to replace with a -7. -7 squared. Copy the minus. Everywhere we see a Y, we're going to put a -3. And that whole expression is over a 2. All right, so we're going to do our exponents first. -7 times -7. Negative times a negative is positive. And what do we do with this negative and negative? Negative of a negative is positive. 49 plus 3 is 52 over 2. And 52 divided by 2 is 26. So you're going to go with practice 10, practicing evaluating expressions. And then finally here, let's look at this application. Classroom example 10. A poker player lost. When you lose money, that's going to be a negative. A poker player lost $1,500 on each of 3 days. Find his total loss. Well, we could do negative 1,500 plus negative 1,500 plus negative 1,500. But what we want to do is use multiplication for this problem, because this is the section on multiplication. So a better way to write this was, for 3 days, he lost $1,500. And so I'll do this for those that have maybe forgotten. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. This is going to be 4,500, but a positive times a negative is negative. So he lost. He has a loss of $4,500, or negative $4,500. I think that's probably how we'd write it. Good. So we finished section 1-7. And just as a reminder, we learned to multiply and divide numbers. We learned how to find a reciprocal. We've evaluated an expression, plugging in those numbers, and we've done a word problem.